Something terrifying awaits millions of Poles. They all made the same decision years ago. They served in their country's military, fulfilled their obligation, and returned to civilian life believing that chapter had closed. They built businesses, they started families, they planned futures rooted in stability inside a NATO member state that for decades felt protected by alliances and geography. Now that past service may no longer be past. Vladimir Putin is laying the psychological and strategic groundwork for a confrontation that could drag Poland into the center of a widening storm. Not because Poland invaded anyone, not because Warsaw is mobilizing for expansion, but because Poland has become indispensable to Ukraine's survival, and indispensable targets eventually draw pressure. This is not a display of Russian confidence. It is a signal of strategic strain. What the Kremlin has been constructing is subtle but deliberate, a narrative framework portraying Poland not as a supportive neighbor of Ukraine, but as an active participant in a war against Russia. The language has shifted. Polish aid is no longer described in Russian state media as assistance. It is labeled direct involvement. Polish training missions are framed as covert deployment. Logistics hubs are called legitimate military targets. That shift matters, because once a state is rhetorically transformed into a combatant, escalation becomes easier to justify. Over the past several years, Poland has emerged as one of Ukraine's most committed backers. It has transferred tanks, artillery, ammunition, and aircraft. It has hosted millions of refugees. It has allowed its territory to serve as a primary logistical artery for Western military aid flowing eastward. From Warsaw's perspective, this is about defending European security. From Moscow's perspective, this is participation. And when participation is alleged, retaliation becomes thinkable. Russian military exercises in Kaliningrad have grown increasingly theatrical. Missile systems are showcased in footage designed for maximum psychological impact. Strategic bomber patrols have probed airspace boundaries. Electronic warfare activity in the Baltic region has increased. GPS interference incidents have been reported. Each of these actions on its own is manageable. Together, they form pressure. The Kremlin is not moving tanks toward Warsaw. It is testing thresholds. Cyber attacks targeting Polish infrastructure have increased in frequency and sophistication. Rail systems that transport military equipment have faced disruptions. Government institutions have reported intrusion attempts. Disinformation campaigns attempt to inflame domestic tensions, exaggerating economic strain and suggesting that Poland is being dragged into war by foreign interests. This is how gray zone escalation unfolds, not with invasion, but with erosion. But before we break down exactly what happened and why this matters so much, please make sure you subscribe to War Theory. We're giving you the real analysis nobody else will touch. Now let's go deeper. The terrifying reality is not that Poland is weak, it is that Poland's strength makes it central to the broader conflict. Poland is a NATO member. Article 5 guarantees collective defense. American forces rotate through Polish bases regularly. Allied battle groups operate on Polish soil. Military exercises are routine, which means any direct confrontation would not be bilateral. It would be alliance-wide. So why would Putin even contemplate escalating pressure toward Poland? Because the war in Ukraine has entered a phase of grinding attrition. Casualty rates are high. Equipment losses continue. Recruitment inside Russia has become more expensive and more coercive. Sanctions have not collapsed the Russian economy, but they have constrained growth and access to advanced technology. The war is costly, and prolonged wars narrow strategic options. If Russia cannot achieve decisive breakthroughs in Ukraine, one method of altering the battlefield is to disrupt Ukraine's support system. Poland is that system's backbone. Military aid from the United States, Germany, the United Kingdom, and other NATO members flows through Polish territory. Training missions often occur there. Repair facilities operate there. Logistics pipelines converge there. Disrupt Poland and you strain Ukraine. But disrupting Poland is dangerous. So the Kremlin appears to be exploring calibrated intimidation rather than overt attack. Narrative escalation is the first layer. Russian officials have increasingly accused Poland of harboring territorial ambitions in western Ukraine. Claims circulate that Warsaw seeks to reclaim historical lands. There is scant evidence supporting this allegation, yet repetition builds perception. If Poland can be framed as expansionist, Russian actions can be framed as defensive. Information warfare is not about proof. It is about plausibility. Simultaneously, Kaliningrad, the heavily militarized Russian enclave bordering Poland and Lithuania, has become a platform for signaling. Missile deployments are highlighted. Naval exercises are publicized. Air defense drills are broadcast. The message is unmistakable. Poland is within reach. But intimidation cuts both ways. Poland has dramatically accelerated its own military modernization. Defense spending has surged above 4% of GDP, one of the highest rates in NATO. New armored divisions are forming. Advanced air defense systems are being deployed. Recruitment campaigns encourage both active service and reserve participation. Poland remembers history, partitions, occupations, invasions. National memory informs national policy. That historical consciousness fuels resolve, yet resolve does not eliminate risk. The danger lies in miscalculation. Consider a scenario where a missile test veers off course and lands near Polish territory, or a drone strike aimed at Ukrainian infrastructure crosses the border, or a cyber attack targeting logistics causes civilian casualties. At high tension levels, accidents become accelerants, and escalation, once triggered, moves faster than diplomacy. The Baltic region compounds complexity. Lithuania borders Kaliningrad. Latvia and Estonia remain deeply concerned about hybrid tactics. Any confrontation involving Poland reverberates across the alliance's eastern flank. This is not a localized issue. It is systemic. Now examine the economic dimension. Poland's economy is deeply integrated into European supply chains. It is a manufacturing hub, a logistics center, a transit corridor. Disruption would ripple across the continent. Energy markets would react instantly. Financial markets would price in instability. Insurance rates for shipping and investment would spike. Uncertainty is costly. Even without a single shot fired, heightened tension erodes confidence. That erosion may be part of the strategy. If Poland becomes economically strained, public opinion could shift. Political debates could intensify. Support for sustained military aid to Ukraine might face scrutiny, pressure without invasion. But here is the strategic paradox. Escalation designed to fracture NATO unity may instead strengthen it. If Poland appears threatened, reinforcements are likely to increase. Air patrols could intensify. Additional battle groups could deploy. Defense spending across Europe could accelerate even further. The alliance, rather than splintering, might consolidate. Desperation-driven strategies often misjudge resilience, and desperation is visible. The Kremlin faces domestic pressures, casualty figures weigh on communities, sanctions limit certain sectors, elite competition persists beneath the surface, war fatigue can grow even in tightly controlled media environments. External confrontation has historically been used to unify domestic opinion, but escalation against a NATO member is not equivalent to escalation against Ukraine. The risks multiply. Poland's society is mobilized in awareness, if not in arms. Civil defense initiatives are expanding. Infrastructure hardening projects are underway. Military reservist programs are being emphasized. The psychological environment is alert. This is not 1939, it is 2026 in a Europe networked by alliances, satellites, and instant communication. And yet unpredictability remains. Hybrid warfare thrives in ambiguity. Little green men without insignia, sabotage without attribution, cyber attacks routed through third countries, narrative manipulation amplified through social media. The line between peace and war blurs. Poland could face sustained gray zone aggression designed to exhaust rather than conquer. Energy grid interference during winter months, rail disruptions timed with major aid shipments, coordinated disinformation campaigns targeting elections, none individually catastrophic, collectively destabilizing. But there is another layer to consider. If Russia escalates pressure on Poland and fails to achieve leverage, the consequences could be severe for Moscow. Additional sanctions could follow. Defense industrial output across NATO could ramp up permanently. Military basing in Eastern Europe could become more permanent and more extensive. Instead of reducing Western involvement, escalation could entrench it. That is the gamble. Now consider the human dimension. Millions of Polish civilians live within range of Kaliningrad-based systems. They follow the news. They hear political rhetoric. They watch exercises unfold. Even if daily life continues, the awareness of vulnerability lingers. Psychological strain accumulates slowly. Markets respond to that strain. Businesses factor in risk. Families reconsider plans. Security, once assumed, becomes conditional. This is the cost of proximity to conflict, and proximity cannot be changed. But Poland is not passive. Its armed forces are expanding rapidly. Modern tanks from South Korea and the United States are entering service. Artillery systems are being procured in large numbers. Air defense networks are being layered. F-35 aircraft are scheduled for integration. Modernization at this scale is not symbolic. It is structural. From Moscow's perspective, such rapid militarization can be portrayed as aggressive. From Warsaw's perspective, it is deterrence. Perception determines escalation dynamics. If Putin concludes that Poland's growing capabilities will eventually constrain Russian freedom of action even further, he may feel pressure to act sooner rather than later. Preemption becomes rationalized. But preemption against a NATO state is not a tactical maneuver. It is strategic rupture, and that rupture would carry global implications. Energy markets would convulse. Global shipping lanes could be affected. Diplomatic alignments would shift. Countries currently balancing neutrality might be forced to choose sides more definitively. The conflict's geographic scope could expand dramatically, which leads back to the core question: why risk it? Because in prolonged wars, leaders sometimes see expansion as the only path to altering unfavorable momentum. If attrition in Ukraine continues without decisive change, expanding pressure outward may seem like initiative. Initiative feels like control. But initiative without advantage is escalation without leverage. And leverage against Poland is limited. NATO's presence on Polish soil is tangible. American troops, allied air defense units, rotational brigades, they are not theoretical. Any direct strike risks immediate multinational involvement. So the Kremlin must calculate carefully. Too little pressure fails to intimidate. Too much pressure invites retaliation. The space between those extremes is narrow. Meanwhile, Poland continues reinforcing infrastructure resilience, underground fuel storage expansion, hardening of communication networks, civilian emergency preparedness drills, increased intelligence cooperation with allies. These measures are not visible on nightly news, but they matter because resilience reduces coercive effectiveness. If intimidation fails, escalation loses value, and if escalation loses value, the strategy collapses. Poland's position inside NATO changes the deterrence equation fundamentally. Any hostile action triggers consultations at the highest levels. Intelligence sharing intensifies instantly. Military readiness shifts. Escalation is no longer a contained affair. It becomes a global event, which may be precisely what deters it. But deterrence requires credibility, and credibility requires visible commitment. That is why NATO exercises on Polish soil are expanding, why rotational deployments continue, why air patrols are persistent. Signals travel in both directions. Wars are not only fought with weapons, they are fought with perception. If Poland appears resolute and supported, escalation becomes costlier. If cracks appear, temptation grows. So far, public opinion in Poland strongly favors national defense and support for Ukraine. Political debates exist, as they do in any democracy, but the broad strategic direction remains consistent. The question is not whether Poland is prepared. It is whether escalation serves any rational objective for Moscow. If rational calculation prevails, deterrence holds. If desperation overrides calculation, Europe enters its most dangerous phase in generations. That is the crossroads. And that is why something deeply unsettling hangs over Poland. Not certainty, but possibility. Possibility in geopolitics is enough to change everything.